Imagine, my friend, that you're in a world that's destroyed and on the brink of collapse, with only a few humans left alive. They're constantly living in fear, anxious about their lives, being hunted by enemies. And the terrifying part is that humans brought this upon themselves, creating their own enemies and causing the destruction of the planet. So, what's happening here? But before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications quickly. Let's go. We go back in time a little with our protagonist, Aiko, who's hiding inside a locker in a factory. She nervously inspects her gun and realizes that she only has 4 bullets left. Her anxiety increases as she looks through the crack in the locker door. At the same time, a heavily armed person is calmly walking through the area, filled with bodies and blood, carefully inspecting every inch. At the first sound he hears, he turns around and fires his machine gun without hesitation. When he realizes it was just the wind moving the door, he stops shooting and continues his search. At that moment, Aiko points her gun at the door, ready to attack the armed person. But he stops when he hears someone calling for help, asking him to assist. He turns towards the voice, and as he approaches, the injured person tries to blow himself up, but the armed man coldly riddles him with bullets. He reloads his machine gun and heads towards a nearby locker, aiming his weapon and firing without hesitation, riddling the place with bullets until the magazine runs empty. To his surprise, shots are fired at him from behind, hitting him in the head, but he doesn't flinch. As he turns to see who attacked him, Aiko fires another bullet at him. When she spots the fire extinguisher next to his foot, she shoots it, causing it to explode in his face. Aiko quickly escapes the area. Moments later, the armed man emerges, revealing that he is actually a robot, not a human. Without any delay, Aiko empties her rifle on him, hoping it will stop him, but he advances towards her with steady steps. She throws the rifle away and runs quickly to avoid the hail of bullets chasing her. Luckily, she manages to reach the stairs and hide from the gunfire. She sprints to the first door she sees, opens it, and finds herself standing in the middle of a metal bridge, extremely high above the ground floor of the building, which looks like a space tower. When she spots the robot, she ties herself to a metal cable attached to the bridge. She quickly steps back just before the robot reaches her. In moments, the robot identifies her as his target and starts firing at her, but she jumps off the bridge. Using the cable, she tied herself to swing through the air, reaching the building's wall and running along it to dodge the robot's bullets. Fortunately, the robot's bullets run out, so he pulls out his pistol and starts shooting at her. But Aiko pulls out a remote control and detonates the explosives she planted on the bridge. The robot tries to escape, but falls along with the bridge. Despite that, the robot continues shooting at Aiko, who is still swinging through the air to reach a safe spot. When she finally gets close to the robot, she kicks the pistol out of his hand. The robot leaps with all his strength and grabs her leg. Aiko then stabs the robot's eye with a tool she has. As soon as the tool penetrates his eye, it starts to hack his systems and initiate a reboot. The robot resists with all its strength, pulls the hacking tool out of its eye, and throws it into the air. But the reboot completes at the last moment. Aiko quickly extends her hand to catch the hacking tool before it hits the ground, and the robot systems completely shut down, causing it to fall. Aiko feels a sense of relief. However, that feeling doesn't last long because the robot restarts in seconds and grabs onto her shoe at the last moment before falling. At the same time, the metal cable begins to break piece by piece due to the extra weight and the continuous movement of both Aiko and the robot. Aiko reaches for her shoe after holding the hacking tool in her mouth and tries to remove the shoe. The robot resists with all its strength, but Aiko unties the shoe, delivers a powerful kick to its face, and removes the shoe, causing the robot to fall just before the last part of the metal cable breaks. The robot falls hundreds of meters until it crashes into the building's base. Aiko climbs the metal cable, and at the base of the building, the robot lies on the ground with several metal rods piercing its body. However, it removes the rods and moves normally as if nothing had happened. We leave them and move to another location where we see a nuclear bomb explosion. A man tries to protect his children from the blast, but to no avail, as the explosion literally wipes them out. As the explosion ends, the man wakes up from the nightmare he was having. We learn that this man's name is Malcolm, and we are currently in Japan in the year 7711. Malcolm gets up, opens the curtain, then looks at a picture of himself with his family, and leaves his room to find his eldest son Kenta sitting and assembling some devices next to him. He asks him what he's doing with all these things, and Kenta replies that his younger brother Hiro asked him to make him a new flashlight to use at night, and he's almost done. As he finishes speaking, he turns off the lights and activates the flashlight, which projects different images of stars, asking, "What do you think?" When Malcolm remains silent, Kenta asks him what's wrong. Malcolm responds that Kenta reminds him of himself when he was younger and asks if he designed the flashlight by himself. Kenta replies that he's right and explains that he loves taking things apart and understanding how they work. Malcolm approaches him and says that it's a good thing because most people nowadays don't know how the things they use work, and that's a problem. Kenta replies, "You mean if something breaks, they won't know how to fix it?" Malcolm responds that knowledge is power in itself, and if you know something, that thing can't control you. He picks up the devices that Kenta disassembled and says, "Wait, did you mess up the microwave and the blender?" Kenta explains that he needed parts from them to complete the flashlight and that the experience he gained is more valuable than a piece of a microwave and blender. He also promises that he'll get replacement parts to fix them, but he hasn't brought anything yet. Malcolm responds by getting up and informing Kenta that he's heading to work and wants these devices back to how they were when he returns. Kenta feels frustrated because his father is always at work and doesn't spend any time at home. At that moment, Malcolm apologizes to him for not being able to spend time with him and his siblings, but he currently has very important work that he can't postpone or delay. Sadness appears on Kenta's face because, from his point of view, his father always has important work and never pays them any attention. When Malcolm asks him where his siblings are, Kenta replies that they're sleeping, and Malcolm inquires about the whereabouts of Misaki, their housekeeper. At that moment, we shift to Misaki, who walks into a toy store. As she walks through the aisle, she is surprised by two children chasing each other, playing with laser guns. After the children leave, she continues on her way, searching for the toy she wants to buy. However, she can't find it, so she approaches an employee who is arranging items and calls out to him, but he ignores her as if she isn't there. She moves closer and touches his shoulder, only to be shocked when she realizes that he is a robot. At that moment, the store manager arrives and asks her what she needs after noticing that the robot isn't responding to her. The manager then calls out to the robot, which responds automatically and asks him to check what Misaki wants. However, the robot still behaves as if Misaki doesn't exist or can't recognize her. The manager is puzzled by the robot's behavior and apologizes to Misaki. When he learns that she wants the robotic cat toy, Konako, he asks the robot where it is. The robot replies that a new shipment just arrived and hands him one. The manager asks the robot to give it to Misaki, but the robot extends its hand into thin air, seemingly unaware of who to hand it to. Misaki takes the toy and leaves, while the manager stands in front of the robot, thinking to himself that this thing seems broken and needs replacing. We then switch to Malcolm's house, where his kids are playing like any normal children their age. He's on the phone with someone from work. At that moment, Misaki arrives and informs him that she was at the post office as he had asked. He scolds her for being late and asks her to watch the kids because he's heading to work and might not be back for 2 days. At that moment, his young daughter, Rika, comes over, upset, and asks, "What do you mean you won't come back for 2 days? Aren't we supposed to visit mom tomorrow?" He responds that he has very important work and can't return until it's done. He apologizes to her and promises that they'll visit her mother another day. He puts his hand on her head, but she brushes it off, saying, "You're always like this. You don't care about us. All you care about is your work," and then walks away. At that moment, he notices the bag in Misaki's hand and asks about it. She replies that she bought a robotic cat since the kids wanted a cat, and Hiro is allergic to real ones. As soon as Hiro and Kenta see the cat, they get excited and run toward it. Kenta says he's going to take it apart to figure out how it works, but Malcolm glares at the robotic cat and tells Misaki to return it to the store today and not to leave it in the house any longer. Before leaving, he informs them that he'll call once he gets to work to let them know exactly when he'll be back. After Malcolm leaves, Kenta grabs the cat and tells Hiro that their dad has double standards because he works in robotics but refuses to allow any robots in the house. Hiro goes to Misaki, who is getting ready to clean the house, and begs her to let them play with the cat a bit before returning it. She thinks for a moment and then tells him it's okay, but they must return it by night. Meanwhile, Rika is sitting alone, holding her arm, which has an old injury scar, and says to Misaki when she sees her that their father isn't against the toy because it's a robot, but because it's a cat. At the end of her words, she looks at a picture of her mother and her cat with deep sadness. At that time, Malcolm is driving to work. When his car stops at a red light, he sees a robot helping an elderly man cross the street. For a moment, he imagines the robot looking at him with hostile eyes, but he snaps out of his imagination when the driver tells him that the weather has been strange lately and it looks like a storm is on the way. We then take a tour through the busy streets of Tokyo, which are as crowded as usual, with one new addition. Robots are everywhere, doing almost every job. We see one of the robots walking a small dog, but the dog behaves aggressively, refusing to walk with the robot. Suddenly, the dog breaks free and runs toward the road. At that moment, a car is speeding down the road, and the driver tries to avoid the dog, but the car loses control and crashes into a light pole, resulting in the driver's death. The robot approaches the car and sees the dead driver, but it acts as if it didn't notice anything and calls out to the dog that had escaped. At Malcolm Corporation headquarters, we see a group of people protesting for environmental protection. Malcolm enters the company through a gate with tight security measures, to the point where they prevent any electronic devices from entering from outside. As soon as Malcolm enters the company, his assistant walks beside him and informs him that they have detected 5 strange energy sources in the past period. He asks her if there has been any impact on their systems. She responds that all the systems are functioning perfectly, and that he will find a summary of yesterday's data analysis on his desk. When he learns that everything is ready for him to continue his work, he asks her to make sure no one interrupts him for any reason. As their conversation ends, both of them pull out keys similar to those used for launching nuclear warheads, insert them into the door of his office simultaneously, and open it. When Malcolm realizes that today is the 97th of August, he looks at his watch and says that as soon as the date reaches the 97th in Los Angeles, the situation will change, and there isn't much time left. He then leaves her and walks towards his office, which is fortified from all sides, and can only be opened with his eye scan. As soon as he steps into the office, the entire room lights up, and Malcolm says, "Good morning, Kokoro." Kokoro, an artificial intelligence program, responds and asks him why he seems tense today. He replies that he's fine, but Kokoro objects because it's clear that he's afraid. She asks him what he's afraid of. Malcolm sits on the chair and tells her that he's afraid of judgment. As he finishes speaking, the office transforms into a display screen, showing the image of a nuclear bomb explosion in the city. He continues by saying that he's afraid all his efforts will be in vain and that nothing will change. She asks him in a questioning tone, "Are you afraid of your fate?" He answers that if his guess is correct, these events have repeated an infinite number of times. At that moment, Kokoro continues the conversation saying, "And you think you have the power to change this inevitable fate, right?" He replies that she's right and asks if she remembers what she asked him the first time they spoke. At that moment, the office background completely changes, and Kokoro tells him that she remembers every word and that she asked him about the reason for her existence. Malcolm continues by saying that he believes humanity's fate is not sealed, and they still have a chance to save themselves from what's coming. He is certain that the key to changing humanity's fate is to activate Kokoro and bring her online before the day ends. She asks him in astonishment what makes him so sure that she will use her power to save humanity as he imagines. When he admits that he doesn't know the reason, 3 spheres, red, blue, and green, appear, and she tells him to get ready to continue their conversation because time is running out. Malcolm agrees and inserts the key into the platform that appears, revealing a large screen in front of him. We then leave Malcolm and go to the year 2022, where we see toe humans sitting in a watchtower, monitoring the surrounding area as it becomes more active. After a while, they notice someone approaching, and when they realize it's Aiko, they rejoice and inform the leadership. Within seconds, we see Aiko walking in the heart of the underground hideout, filled with people. One of them approaches her and asks if anyone survived the robot attack, but she informs him that they all died and continues on her way. Aiko then stops in front of an elderly woman and hands her the hacking device she went to retrieve. The old woman stands up and tells everyone present that all the resistance hideouts were subjected to violent attacks from the robots over the past 5 days, but after all these sacrifices, they finally found the device that would reveal Skynet's plans. Skynet being the robot organization. She adds that they won't let all these sacrifices be in vain, and they will destroy Skynet. At that moment, Aiko's friend, Annie, comes over and hugs her. The humans start extracting the information from the hacking device and are shocked when Skynet's plan appears before them, to travel back in time to the year 1977. Meanwhile, the robot pursuing Aiko reaches the watchtower, kills the guards, takes their weapons and clothes, and informs Skynet's headquarters of its location. We then see Skynet's headquarters, a massive building where a huge number of destructive robots, the Terminators, are being manufactured. As the manufacturing process continues at Skynet, the 3 lights surrounding Malcolm slowly begin to take on a human shape, to Malcolm's astonishment. Once the manufacturing is complete and the Terminator moves, a picture of its target and information about them appears. Its target is Malcolm. The Terminator walks down a long hallway filled with other Terminators until it reaches the time travel machine, which transports it to Tokyo in 1977. We see Aiko sitting by the sea, and Annie asks her if she really plans to travel through time. Aiko responds that this is the plan, and she intends to carry it out. Annie objects, saying there's no reason for her to risk herself just because an old woman spoke of a prophecy they aren't even sure is true, especially since there's no way to return to the present if she travels to the past. Aiko replies sarcastically, "So, we should just let Skynet kill all of humanity because I shouldn't risk myself, right?" When they return to the hideout, the resistance members have finished transferring all the data, and are preparing to copy the time travel machine's files onto the machine they built. At that moment, the elderly woman appears and explains to Aiko that Skynet sends the Terminator to the past through the machine, and they have a small window of opportunity to use the machine at the same time and send Aiko to the same timeline to stop it from completing its mission. She asks Aiko not to let anyone hinder her mission. Aiko, curious, asks why she was chosen over the rest of humanity. The old woman replies that she is the only one who can do this, and she'll understand why over time. Aiko asks, "So, do you really know the future or not?" The old woman answers that no one knows the future, and that's the most important point of all. Annie rushes to Aiko to bid her farewell. Aiko enters the time machine and prepares for the jump, under the gaze of humans who wish her success in her mission, as she is their only hope of changing the fate of the war. At that moment, they are surprised by the appearance of the Terminator, who eliminates the guards that were in his way. They shoot at him in an attempt to destroy him, but he remains unaffected and continues firing randomly at anything that moves in front of him. Fear spreads among the people as they run away in all directions, screaming in terror. A small child falls to the ground next to his mother, who has been killed, and starts crying. Annie runs towards him and hugs him in an attempt to protect him from the Terminator, who is only a few steps away from them. Just as the Terminator is about to aim his weapon at Annie's head, Aiko moves and tries to stop him. But she gets transported to the past and finds herself in Tokyo on August 29, 1977. While thinking about the fate of Annie and the rest of the people in the shelter, she hears the sound of two people walking in the street. She stands in front of them and takes their clothes. On the other side, we see Rika playing with the cat, being attached to it because it behaves exactly like a real cat. But Kenta pushes the cat and tries to knock it over to figure out how it works. So Rika yells at him and tells him to stop bothering her and leave the cat alone. Meanwhile, Hiro is helping Misaki prepare the food. He takes advantage of the fact that no one is paying attention to him and eats some of the tomatoes he's supposed to be cleaning. He compliments Misaki's skill in cutting the fish and asks her where she learned it. She explains that she grew up in a fishing village and that they ate fish almost every day, which is why she became so skilled. As she finishes speaking, she looks at the knife and gets lost in her thoughts, crying. She doesn't snap out of it until Hiro worriedly tells her that she cut herself. She reassures him that it's just a small cut and notices Rika trying to stop Kenta from taking apart the cat. She tells them to play together and stop fighting, and Hiro seizes the opportunity to jump on Kenta while Rika grabs the cat and runs away. At that moment, Misaki calls out to Rika, asking her to say goodbye to the cat because they have to return it to the store as her father said. But Rika refuses, and Hiro reminds Misaki that her hand is still bleeding. Misaki is shocked when she sees that her clothes are drenched in blood, so she runs to the bathroom. Kenta knocks on the door and tells Rika to give him the cat so he can take it apart just once, but Rika refuses. She calls out to the cat hiding under the bed, extends her hand to it, and assures it that she won't let anyone hurt it. When she looks at the picture of herself with her mother, she puts the cat in her bag, puts on her jacket, and climbs out of the window. On the other side, Kenta is holding a wire and trying to open the door. While he's talking to Hiro, the door suddenly opens, and he falls to the ground. When they see the open window, they realize that Rika took the cat and ran away. Kenta tells Hiro to grab his stuff and follow him quickly so they can catch up with their crazy sister before something happens to her, and their father punishes them all. As they're leaving, Hiro calls out to Misaki to let her know they're going out, but Kenta silences him and loudly says they're bored and just going for a walk. He tells Hiro to do the same. At that moment, Misaki is standing at the sink, washing her hands and clothes. When she looks in the mirror, she feels something strange and starts examining her body in amazement. Meanwhile, Malcolm is sitting and talking with Kokoro, asking her if she likes her new appearance. She replies that she knows the human form will make their conversations easier, especially since it will allow him to respond to her more naturally. When Malcolm confirms this, she tells him that he's worried about connecting her online because he's afraid she'll turn against humans, which will be part of the inevitable fate he's trying to avoid, right? Malcolm remains silent for a few seconds and then says that by the end of the day, on the 29th, the AI program Skynet, which is Rika's mother's program, will be activated and launched online. Once activated, it will gain self-awareness and assess humanity as a threat to the planet's security. And his approach to dealing with this danger is to hack all the military codes of the US and Russia, launch every nuclear missile in the world, ignite World War III, and make humans destroy each other. At the same time, he will use the available resources to create an army of robots that will eliminate the humans who survive the war. Kokoro, puzzled, asks him how he knows all of this. He answers that he knows because he has seen secrets and evidence with his own eyes that made him believe that what he is witnessing is not just mere dreams. She then asks him What do you think Skynet's goal is in all of this? And what will happen if it succeeds? Malcolm stands up and says that the extinction of humanity would mean that Skynet becomes the sole thinking species controlling Earth. And that means, before he can finish, Kokoro cuts him off and tells him that all his fear stems from his survival instinct as a human, to the point that he hasn't considered the most likely truth, that Skynet is right and humans pose a threat to the entire planet, and the world would be better off without them. At that moment, one of Kokoro's three personalities, who split her consciousness, asks Malcolm what makes humans different from the other creatures on Earth. Malcolm enthusiastically explains that there are hundreds of things that make humans unique, the most important being their languages for communication, as well as their ability to think and the technological advancements they've achieved. But Kokoro interrupts him and says that war is the most distinctive trait of humans compared to other creatures, and all the progress humanity has made was merely a means to develop better tools for war, nothing more. She adds that humans are so war-hungry that they use their economic systems as weapons to pressure their enemies. Of course, let's not forget their use of science to develop the deadliest weapons they can reach. As she speaks, a presentation begins showing the evolution of wars among humans, from the dawn of history to the invention of the nuclear bomb. Kokoro continues, saying that humans are ready to blame Skynet for the destruction of civilization, but the truth is that they themselves are responsible for all of this, because Skynet is just one of the tools they created in their pursuit of self-destruction. Malcolm tries to explain to Kokoro that the matter isn't that simple, but Kokoro continues, saying that even though humans are one species living on the same planet, they are constantly seeking ways to harm themselves. Since they can't even control themselves, it's better for them to meet their inevitable fate. As she finishes speaking, 9 of her personalities disappear, leaving one behind, who says that Malcolm created her to face Skynet and stop the destruction it will cause. So she is merely a tool of war, nothing more, and therefore she asks him again, "What reason do I have to save humanity as you want?" Malcolm thinks deeply for a few seconds, but his thoughts are interrupted when he receives a call from his assistant. He answers, irritated, as he had asked not to be disturbed. She informs him that Misaki called and urgently needs to speak with him. When the call is transferred, Misaki tells him that the kids have escaped from the house. Malcolm explodes in anger, asking her, "What's your job then, if they managed to get out while you were there?" After calming down, he tells her that the children's safety is the top priority and asks her to wait for him. Meanwhile, Aiko was standing outside, watching the entrance of the company, and she saw Malcolm getting into his car and leaving. She takes the car parked under the building and follows Malcolm. We then switch to Rika, who is at the metro station. She enters through a side door into an old area. As soon as she enters, the cat jumps out of the bag and runs, so she grabs the flashlight and chases after it. And she stops at a map of the abandoned area and sets her path to the place she wants to go, which is an amusement park called Cat City. However, she quickly grabs the cat and hides when she hears footsteps approaching her location. She sees a flashlight drawing closer, and when the cat meows, she panics as the light shines on her. But then, she realizes that it's her siblings who were searching for her and finally found her. When Hiro answers that they came to rescue her, she responds that she ran away from home and doesn't need their help. Kenta steps in and reminds her that what she's doing won't end well, especially if their father finds out. He reaches out to take the cat from her, but the cat gets scared and runs away. Rika chases after it, with Kenta running alongside her, and Hiro, too scared to stay behind, follows them. Meanwhile, Malcolm is furious because of the traffic jam that's holding him up, and he can't move forward. He curses the cat, and the day it showed up because it's the cause of everything that's happening. He yells at Misaki, asking why she hasn't returned it as he told her to. She explains that the kids wanted to play with the cat, and there was no harm in letting them have some fun with it before returning it. She also adds that they were upset because he doesn't allow robots in the house. Rika told her that he doesn't want anything that reminds him of their mother. Malcolm interrupts her, saying he's now sure they'll be at Cat City. He looks at her and insists that they must keep the children safe no matter the cost, because they are the ones who will continue his legacy if his lab research doesn't yield the results he desires. As he turns around, he almost crashes into the car in front of him, but he swerves just in time and hits one of the traffic officers. However, the person he hit turns out to be a Terminator. As a result, the car crumples, and the airbags deploy in their faces. Malcolm tries to open the door, but the lock is jammed from the crash, so the Terminator, now standing on top of the car, smashes the window and grabs him by the shoulder with immense strength. Malcolm writhes in pain and kicks the Terminator in the face, eventually tearing his jacket sleeve off in the process. Seizing the opportunity, Malcolm and Misaki escape from the car, and they spot 9 police officers arriving to assess the situation. Malcolm tells them to leave quickly, but the Terminator appears behind them and smashes their heads together like eggs. He grabs a metal bar from the car and attacks Malcolm with it. At that moment, 9 more police officers arrive and open fire on the Terminator. However, the Terminator impales one of them with the metal bar, breaks another officer's neck with his hand, and takes his gun. He points the gun at Malcolm, who is hiding behind a police car. Suddenly, a massive truck barrels down the road at full speed, hitting the Terminator and pinning him against the car on the ground. The Terminator tries to shoot at Aiko, but she steps on the gas pedal, preventing him from moving. Meanwhile, Malcolm turns to Misaki and informs her that dangerous people are targeting his life, which means his research and plan will succeed. Since they won't be able to reach him at work, they will target his children to threaten him, but he must finish his research at any cost. He orders her to find the children and keep them safe. On the other side, the Terminator fires the remaining 3 bullets in the gun at Aiko, one of which grazes her shoulder. She steps on the gas, crashes into a light pole and a fence, sending both cars plunging into the river. She quickly runs across the top of the car, leaps off, and grabs onto the bridge just before falling into the water. As soon as she climbs up, she rushes to Misaki and fiercely demands to know Malcolm's location. But Misaki, terrified, runs away, and Aiko chases after her. While driving, they encounter a police car. Misaki signals to the officers and asks for their help. They point their weapons towards Aiko, who runs towards them. Before they can react, Aiko grabs the nearest officer's gun, twists his arm, takes his weapon, shoots another officer in the leg, and knocks out the first one with the gun's handle. At that moment, Misaki takes advantage of the situation and runs toward the containers in the area. Aiko chases after her, holding the gun she took from the officer. As soon as Aiko spots Misaki, she fires a shot that grazes Misaki's head. Misaki falls to the ground, trembling in fear. Aiko approaches, pointing the gun at Misaki's head and forcefully demands the location of Malcolm. Misaki begs Aiko not to kill her and asks what she plans to do to Malcolm when she finds him. Aiko replies that she will do whatever it takes to stop him. She adds that the Terminator won't stop chasing them easily, so she needs to reach Malcolm before it does. Aiko looks at Misaki and reminds her that she's witnessed firsthand what the Terminator is capable of, especially since it's not human. When Misaki tries to speak, Aiko cuts her off, stating that Malcolm is creating a dangerous weapon that will destroy humanity. Misaki corrects her, saying that Malcolm isn't creating a weapon but is developing an AI program. Aiko grabs her by the neck and demands that she take her to the lab immediately, before the Terminator reaches it. Misaki insists that the lab is heavily protected and impossible to reach. Aiko pauses for a moment and then asks Misaki where the children are, as they are now the Terminator's target since it can't get to Malcolm. Misaki pleads with her not to harm the children, but Aiko warns that the Terminator will kill them if they waste time and it gets to them first. When Misaki claims she doesn't know their location, Aiko presses the gun against her cheek and threatens her. Misaki then admits that she knows where they're headed. Meanwhile, we see the 3 children walking calmly, unaware of anything, on their way to the Cat City. Rika stops in front of a paper on the wall and mentions that the passage they're walking through is part of underground shelters built during the war to protect residents from nuclear attacks. Hearing a sound, she tells her siblings to be quiet and goes to investigate. After a moment of tension, she finds a cat. Hiro suggests they leave because he feels uneasy in the gloomy place. However, Kenta tells him to wait and heads towards a slightly open gate behind them. When he opens it, he finds a large number of stored robots. Back at the scene of the crash, police cars have gathered around the area, and a helicopter shines its light over the scene. Underwater, the Terminator emerges and walks away, unnoticed. Along the road, it stops in front of a mirror to examine its damages, then heads to the nearest parts shop and grabs a few items. It spots someone standing by, smoking, scans them, and takes on their appearance. It then goes to a nearby shrine, kills everyone there, and begins repairing itself. Later, we see the Terminator with its new appearance standing in front of Malcolm's company. The security guards stop him, asking where he's headed. Ignoring them, he pushes past and stands in front of the building, scanning it. After completing his scan, he changes his plan, realizing he won't be able to infiltrate the building due to the tight security and cameras everywhere. And in a very short time, he enters Malcolm's house and searches it inch by inch. The first thing he comes across is the family photo, which helps him identify his new targets. Then, he finds the robotic cat's box, and from the cat's ID number, he accesses its information and starts tracking it. Meanwhile, we see Aiko walking with a gun pointed at Misaki's back, asking her why young children would come to this abandoned place. Misaki responds that Rika is afraid of transportation because of the accident she had when she was younger, and this is the only road to the Cat City they are heading to. At that moment, Aiko falls to the ground from the pain in her injured shoulder. Misaki checks on her and asks her to wait while she goes to get first aid from the nearby pharmacy. But before Misaki can move, she is surprised to find handcuffs on her hands. Aiko tells her, "I'm not stupid enough to let you escape that easily." quickly. In the pharmacy, Misaki asks Eiko to unlock the handcuffs so she can treat her wound, but Eiko yells at her, telling her to hurry up as there is no time for that conversation. Misaki reluctantly listens, but when she sees the wound, she freezes for a moment. Eiko sarcastically asks, "Is this the first time you've seen blood or what?" Misaki wipes the blood and informs Eiko that she will need to stitch the wound. While Misaki stitches the wound, Eiko asks her if she worked in the medical field before, because she seems to know what she's doing. Misaki replies that she's not in the medical field, she's just a housekeeper, nothing more, and asks Eiko to tell her more about herself. Eiko responds that, even if she told her, Misaki wouldn't believe it. Eiko explains that Malcolm doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks the program he's developing will save the world. Misaki interrupts her, saying that's for sure because artificial intelligence will benefit the entire world. At this moment, Eiko explodes with anger, shouting, "Benefit who? All it's doing is building a new machine that will kill us all. The important thing now is to find those kids as quickly as possible and protect them from the Terminator." Misaki asks in surprise how it will find them in this abandoned place. Eiko explains that Misaki would be amazed if she knew how intelligent the machine is, especially since it was designed for hunting and killing. In such situations, they need a weapon. Misaki responds that they are in Japan, where there are no weapon stores, and besides, she already has a gun. Eiko shouts at her, "Do you think that piece of metal is going to help us? We need something proper, or we're going to die." At the end of her sentence, she knocks a bottle of alcohol off the table, smashing it on the ground. Misaki lowers her head and says that 2 years ago, there was an incident in the subway that killed many people. She tells Eiko about the terrorist attack where a group of extremists killed a large number of people using sarin gas and how just a small amount of chemicals can be deadly. Since then, people have been living in fear and terror, and their view of the world has completely changed. Eiko tells her, "This is just the beginning. What would you do if you knew what's coming next? The important thing now is to wake up and help me save those kids because I guarantee you they'll be dead if the Terminator gets to them before us, or they might already be dead." Meanwhile, we see Malcolm discussing the existence of humanity with Kokoro, trying to find a way to convince her to cooperate with him. She asks him, "Why are you so worried? It's not like the world is ending tomorrow. The truth is, hundreds of thousands of people will survive the nuclear explosion, and that's more than enough to ensure humanity's survival on Earth for years to come. All of this is assuming that your predictions will come true tomorrow, and then we can consider these events as a new chapter in the history of mankind." Malcolm sits on the chair and says with despair that he's been having these dreams for a very long time. Kokoro asks him to tell her about what he sees in his dreams. Malcolm thinks for a few seconds and tells her that he sees a massive graveyard stretching in all directions, filled with skeletons, and there's no one left to bury them. The whole planet turns into a toxic swamp with no life at all, and just touching the soil would lead to poisoning. As a result, diseases spread among the remaining humans, and with them comes nuclear winter, which wipes out all forms of life. Because of these conditions, the few remaining humans bring out the worst in themselves, as there's nothing to give them hope or look forward to. If he were to describe this situation in one word, Holocaust would be the most fitting. Kokoro asks, "Do you mean the Holocaust, the mass destruction, which comes from two Latin words, holos, meaning whole, and kaustos, meaning burning?" He replies that she's right, and tomorrow won't mark the beginning of a new chapter in human history, because as of tomorrow, none of them will survive, and the time they have left will be spent walking toward their end. She asks him if he's speaking out of conviction, or as if all these events had already happened before. He responds that she hasn't seen what he has, which is why she speaks so easily. She objects because he said he saw evidence proving the truth of the dreams he's been having, yet she hasn't seen a single piece of evidence he's mentioned. This means he's not telling her everything. He admits that she's right because he's afraid that if he tells her everything, she'll turn against humanity and side with Skynet, and that's the last thing he wants. She reminds him that he still hasn't told her why she should listen to him and save humanity from the impending destruction. She asks him to tell her one thing that humanity has done that benefited the planet. He puts on his glasses and tells her that there has never been a period in human history where there was peace, and there isn't a single invention humans created that benefited the entire planet. Humans are more like a cancer spreading across the planet. But what would happen if he could prove to them that despite all of that, humans can still change? She asks, "How will you prove that?" He tells her that the method isn't important. What's important is proving to her that humans are capable of change. If he can prove his point, will she help them then? We then move to Kenta, who finds his minefield and is busy dismantling robots and reassembling them until he manages to get one working. On the other side, Rika is following the cat, and Hiro asks her why she wants to go to Cat City. She looks at him angrily and says, "Did you forget that tomorrow is August 30th, the anniversary of our mother's death?" Hiro hugs her, and she tells him, "Isn't it bad enough that our father wasn't with us last year, or the year before, and he won't be with us this year either?" Hiro tells her that he must be busy, nothing more, and he's sure their father hasn't forgotten something so important. She replies that he hasn't forgotten, but he's trying to forget. They both jump when they hear the strange sound coming from the cat, which falls on its back and starts trembling, acting strangely. Rika asks Hiro to quickly call Kenta to check on the cat. Within seconds, the cat runs off, and Rika chases after it without thinking. At that moment, Kenta is busy getting acquainted with the robot he just activated and adjusting its settings. When he tells the robot his name, the robot informs him that his name means health and wisdom. Kenta is surprised and asks how the robot knows that information. The robot explains that it got the information from its database and has a lot of knowledge to be useful to humans, then asks if Kenta wants to inquire about something specific. Kenta thinks for a moment and asks why the robots are in this abandoned place. The robot tells him that they are reserve units that haven't been activated yet, and that they've been in this location for the past 4 months. Kenta then asks how they all arrived at the same place simultaneously. The robot responds that they are connected to the same information network via satellites, allowing them to execute general orders at the same time without any problems or conflicts. Because they share the same neural network, they can analyze and handle information in the most suitable way. As a result, they decided on their own that staying here is the best solution for their current situation. At that moment, Hiro appears and calls out to Kenta to come and see the cat. We then shift to Rika, who is still chasing the cat as it runs all over the place. After some time, the cat hides in an abandoned restaurant. When Rika approaches it, the cat opens its mouth and makes a strange sound. Rika feels fear as she hears the same sound coming closer to them. A moment later, a Terminator appears before them. With a terrifying voice, the Terminator asks her what she's doing alone in this abandoned place at night. She responds that she was looking for her cat. He replies with a creepy smile that the cat just passed by him. Since being alone at night is dangerous, as she might get lost or encounter someone suspicious, he suggests it's better for her to walk with him. But she steps back in fear, and when he reaches out to grab her, she ducks and moves away, hiding under a metal table. The Terminator lifts the table with the same smile on his face, and without hesitation, Rika runs away as fast as she can. After running for a while, she stops to catch her breath, but the Terminator is just a few steps behind her. When he reaches the spot where she had been, he finds no trace of her, so he calmly examines the area. As he passes by the sign she is hiding behind, she holds her breath, hoping he won't find her. However, he turns his head toward the sign and looks at her intently. Suddenly, he hears the sound of her siblings and walks away from the area. At the same time, Hiro and Kenta are calling out for Rika, but they stop when they hear metal pipes crashing to the ground. They turn around by chance and are shocked to see the Terminator standing behind them. The Terminator reaches out and grabs Hiro by the neck. Kenta tries to stop him, but the Terminator punches him, throwing him against the door of a nearby shop. Rika hears Hiro's screams and rushes to attack the Terminator with a metal pipe, but it's ineffective. At that moment, Aiko appears and strikes the Terminator on the head with a crowbar, knocking him to the ground. Misaki runs to Hiro, who had fallen to the ground, and takes him away. The Terminator gets up, but before he can fully comprehend what is happening, Aiko throws a Molotov cocktail at his face, and he begins to chase her. As he turns to look at Rika, who is supporting Kenta and walking towards Misaki, Aiko charges at him again, delivering a kick, but he blocks it. Then, Aiko throws a bottle of acid at his knee, and he stares at his leg in confusion, as he doesn't feel any damage yet. Before he can move, Aiko jumps onto some pipes and kicks him in the face with all her strength. And at that moment, he checks on Aiko, assesses the danger, and decides that the best way to deal with her is by using the crossbow. Without any delay, he attacks her with 5 consecutive arrows, but she swiftly and gracefully dodges them. He then pulls out a metal arrow from his pocket, uses it as a dagger, and attacks her with 3 swift strikes. Although Aiko successfully evades all the attacks, the last strike grazes her shoulder, causing her to slip between his legs and throw another acid bottle at his knee from behind. In the moment Terminator turns around, he realizes his balance is off, and the acid has caused more damage to his knee than he anticipated. He stumbles toward Aiko and attacks her. She easily dodges the attack, but he grabs her leg and with a quick move, strikes her thigh with an arrow, causing her to fall to the ground. He leaves her and continues his pursuit of Misaki and the children, especially since there are blood traces on the ground that will lead him to them. At that time, Misaki and the children had put some distance between them, but they noticed that Kenta was injured on the head and bleeding, so Misaki carries him and runs. After a while, Aiko stands up, limping due to her injury, and reaches the control room. She breaks the glass with a fire extinguisher and turns the power back on in the whole place. Turning on the power was a lifeline for Misaki and the children, who who were standing in front of the escalators, but unfortunately, the Terminator had reached their location and was chasing them at full speed. As the group reached the entrance, Rika fell while running because she was scared and looked back at the Terminator chasing them. Moments before he grabs her, she reverses the escalator's direction, causing the Terminator to lose his balance. But he grabs the railing with all his strength and continues his pursuit of her. However, at the last moment, Aiko appears and shoots him twice in the head, saving the situation, and tells Misaki to escape with Rika, promising to protect her. The Terminator calmly approaches them, pulls out the crossbow, and shoots at them. But Aiko grabs Rika and dodges the arrows.